I'm Mark.
And I'm Josh.
And this is Alter Ego Comics TV, episode number 194, coming to you from Alter Ego Comics in Lima, Ohio. And lots of cool stuff this week. Not a heavy week, but some stuff that you should definitely be aware of. And the first up is actually my pick of the week, and that's Silk #1. That would be the first issue of a new ongoing series starring Cindy Moon. Who is Cindy Moon, you ask? Well, if you haven't been keeping up with Spider-Man or Spider-Verse or anything spider-related in the last several months, turns out that Peter Parker was not the only one bitten by that radioactive spider 5 years ago, according to Marvel Comics continuity.
No, it's not 5 years.
It was 5 years. No, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Because she spent 10, so it was 10 years ago.
She was in the thing for 10 years. It was,
yeah.
I thought 12 or 13 was the official.
It was 10.
Okay.
So anyway, another person was at the science experiment, was bitten by the same radioactive spider, developed similar powers to Peter Parker, and was discovered by Ezekiel, not the same Ezekiel from the J. Michael Straczynski run. I don't remember.
I assumed it was the same Ezekiel.
There were some changes, I think.
Okay.
And locked in a bunker for the last 10 years because if the inheritors, a.k.a. Family Moreland, figured out that she was there, she would cause the end of the universes. So
Which is sort of what happened in Spider-Verse.
She was the bride of the three, the scion, the bride, and the bastard, or whatever it was. The
other was Kane.
That other guy.
Yeah.
So this is a long story of me saying that there is a new character named Cindy Moon who is basically a female Peter Parker, much like the ultimate version of Spider.
Jessica
somebody
Drew.
or other. Yeah, Jessica Drew. My mind is wandering today. So Silk is kind of cool. Was cool as a supporting character in the Spider books, and I think that she can really support her own book. This is written by Robbie Thompson with artwork by Stacey Lee, and there seems to be a lot of heat behind Stacey Lee's art. A lot of people are enjoying that. I really liked it. I think it fits the book very well. Just a lot to like about this. We get special appearances by Spider-Man. She gets to take on some kind of Z-list bad guy who happens to be working for the Black Cat, who is now the new kingpin of crime. Kind of, sort of. Black Cat is
Which is very similar to Catwoman being the kingpin of crime over in Eternal.
Marvel and DC, just two sides of the same coin. So, bottom line with this one is I highly recommend picking up Silk from Marvel Comics this week. Whether you're a Spider-Man fan or not, if you haven't been reading Spider-Man, I think you can probably pick this up and be off and running, but especially if you've been a fan of the recent events in Spider-Man, this one is for you.
Cool. Also up this week, we've got Uncanny X-Men #31, and it wins one of my awards for Most Deceiving Cover. You see that? See Havoc holding Cyclops off the side of a building? Havoc's not even in this issue.
Well done.
Good work, guys. But the issue itself is pretty solid. This is the final culmination of the last will and testament of Charles Xavier that's been going on in Uncanny for several months now, 6 issues, give or take. And we finally find out what the punchline is, what the ultimate end is. A lot of times, especially in comics and especially in X-Men, you have storylines where crazy stuff happens. Alternate dimensions, time travel, clones, wacky monsters. And a lot of times, by the time the storyline wraps up, what we saw in the issue isn't necessarily the status quo anymore. Things may have changed or reverted to normal. Just like The Simpsons, every episode ends with them basically where they were. So this time we see exactly how much of the time travel and murdering and Omega-level mutant stuff has been going on for 6 months, how much of that is actually going to translate into the actual Marvel Universe. And it was slightly more than I expected, and there's definitely a status quo change for Cyclops and for some of the X teams coming out of this book. So if you're an X fan, you definitely want to check it out. And I'm just thrilled to have Bendis continuing to make awesome X-Men books with some very cool art by Chris Bachalo.
Next up for me is a book I cannot pronounce. It's called 8, but the spelling is E-I, the number 8, H-T. This is a time travel story co-written and illustrated by Raphael Albuquerque, who is most well known probably for being the penciler on American Vampire. Actually listed as co-creator alongside Scott Snyder with American Vampire. So I was really looking forward to this one because I'm a huge fan of his artwork, and it does not disappoint. It's a time travel story. It involves science. It involves time travel. It's got great artwork. There's not much else I can tell you other than it's published by Dark Horse Comics, and I think it's worth your attention this week.
Just looking at our selections, there's a lot of time travel going on.
Yeah, time travel is everywhere.
All right, next up we've got Ivar Timewalker, issue number 2. This is written by Fred Van Lente with art by Clayton Henry. And this continues the just awesome time-traveling goodness Valiant is sending us. And one of the great all-time time travel stories is Let's Go Back and Kill Hitler. And that's what we do in this issue. Ivar is trying to illustrate the principles of time travel and how certain things will change and certain things won't. So he's letting them try to stop or try to kill Hitler. And it doesn't go exactly the way I expected. I definitely like the way Van Lente's playing with the classic timeline paradox, similar to what we saw in Back to the Future 2 towards the end, where you've got two different Martys in the 50s and two different Docs, and the story's crossing back on itself and crisscrossing, and there's a lot of opportunities for humor and great action and sci-fi. I love some of the world building that Van Lente's doing putting this book together. So if you're a Doctor Who fan, if you like time travel, if you just like zany adventures, Ivar Timewalker is just awesome so far.
It is. Next up for me is a book called Secret Identities. This is Secret Identities #1. It's co-written by Jay Ferber, who's our pal and writes great things like Copperhead and Noble Causes and things like that, and Brian Jones, with artwork by Ilias Kyriazis, the Greek. That guy.
I'm pretty sure that's who David McCullough played on The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
I think so. So, Secret Identities is about a superhero team set in the present day. It could be the Justice League, it could be the Watchmen, it could be lots of different teams, and they have a mole on the team. You find out by the end of the story, or by the end of the first issue, I should say. But along the way, we discover that this team may be more Watchmen-like than Justice League-like, because each of the characters has something that they're hiding from the rest of the team. And we're not really sure why the mole is there. It sounds like he's there to implode the team from within, but how all of these dirty secrets that these different team members have, how that's going to play into things, that's what has me coming back to check out future issues. So it's a team of good guys that are there, good guys and gals, who are defending the city and the world. What city and world? I don't know. It doesn't matter.
It's Canada.
Oh, it is
Montreal.
in Canada. That's right. Yeah. No, is it?
Their
based
their
in
base
Canada,
is in Canada.
But the story, a lot of the story takes place in the U.S.
Okay.
Just an enjoyable read. Really, anything by Jay Ferber at this point, I will read. The guy is just knocking it out of the park on everything that he does. He's just such a talented writer, and I'm really curious to see where things go with this dynamic. So if you're looking for a new superhero team book from Image, because there really aren't that many, and you came up with a reason for that last week, or you read something about.
Oh yeah, somebody did an essay. I don't even remember where I read it now, but they were talking about how Marvel and DC superheroes, they're not just stories anymore. It's mythology. My grandparents, great grandparents read this stuff. It's you can't compete with the level of universe that exists there. So you're better off as an indie creator creating a non-superhero books, or at least books that aren't.
It's tough for superhero books to find their legs if it's not a Marvel and DC book, and we've seen that from lots of publishers. But if anybody can do it, I think it's Ferber. I mean, he did it with Noble Causes. He did it with Dynamo 7. Dynamo 5?
Dynamo 5.
Dynamo 5. So, Secret Identities was very enjoyable.
Yeah, and I think Watchmen is a pretty good parallel. It's not nearly as heavy or dark as Watchmen, which is good.
The artwork is very cartoony. It looks a lot more comic-y.
Yeah. But one of the things that Watchmen was really praised for was, it's a 12-issue miniseries or maxi-series, whatever, that's completely introduced an entirely new universe, and not just to create a superhero team, but generations preceding it. It was a team with history that was created out of broad cloth. And Farber's doing similar things. We're seeing members who were on the team but aren't anymore. There's a lot of world building going on. There's a lot of history, even though it's just a first issue, and I thought it was lots of fun too.
Yeah.
Last up for me this week, we've got. I don't like it. If you had told me a year ago that I would keep month after month picking a Grant Morrison book, I would have called you Crazy Town Banana Pants. But apparently I'm going to keep doing that. So we've got Multiversity Mastermen, Overman versus Uncle Sam. And this is written, of course, by Grant Morrison with art by the inimitable Jim Lee. And this is a story of Nazi Superman. The kid, the Schiff Kraftslands in Nazi Deutschland, like 38, I want to say, in the 30s, before the war's over, actually maybe before the war even started, and Superman is raised to be the Ubermensch, And so we ultimately it changes the outcome of World War II. It changes the evolution of all the other heroes in the DC universe. Nazis run the world, and it also jumps up to the present day where we see the current incarnation of the Justice League, or the evil Nazi League, whatever it's called, and the people fighting back against that, including, of course, Uncle Sam. And it was just really good. I'm a sucker for a good Elseworld story, and that's what a lot of these Multiversity tales have been. You know, it gives us a vignette in a alternate universe, and as much as I think Grant Morrison is crazy a lot of the time, he definitely seems to know which buttons to push to get a great comic story made. And yeah, it was, I'm going to say great again. It was awesome.
Cool. I may actually have to read it because I've been avoiding Multiversity like the plague.
Each one is self-contained. You don't have to have read any of the previous ones to appreciate this issue, or any
That's
issue,
good.
really.
All right, well, speaking of DC, we've got a couple public service announcements that if you're on the interwebs, you may have stumbled across. And Justice League is one of our highest-selling books, so you've probably read it, but I don't know if everyone is walking away with the same possible implications from the ending of Justice League 39. And by the time this goes up, it will have been out for a few days, so I don't think this is huge spoiler territory.
And to a certain extent, the information was already in the previous issues.
Yeah.
This is just
So the Amazovirus has been unleashed upon the citizens of Metropolis, and the Justice League ends up combating it, but not without some downsides. And one of those is that a certain percentage, I believe it's 3% of the population of Metropolis, maybe it's 1%, but it's a lot of people, have now developed powers. Very similar to the mutant gene, very similar to the Terrigen Mists, to borrow some pages from Marvel's. So who knows what the DC universe is going to look like with hundreds of thousands of people that now have abilities, and we don't know whether those people are good or evil or know what they're doing with their powers. So that is kind of where we're left hanging at the end of Justice League 39.
And actually what it made me think of was, and I know you probably didn't play the game, but you may have watched the lead-in video to it, the DC Universe Online. The rationale for the individual players getting to play superheroes was a spore type thing that made a bunch of new superpowered people out in the world. So that was also similar to me.
The other cool thing, I think it's a cool thing, but who knows where we're going with this. Batgirl number 39 came out this week, and the last 2 pages revealed a shocker that the Batgirl that has been part of the New 52 may in fact not be the same Barbara Gordon that was Oracle pre-New 52.
Or it may be. It could be a Clone Saga thing. We don't know.
We don't know what it is, but what we're presented with, again, spoiler warning, if you don't want the ending of Batgirl 39 spoiled for you, turn it off now. But Batgirl reveals her identity, or has her identity to reveal to one of her supporting cast members, and there's a laptop or a computer on in the room. All of a sudden the computer screen takes on that familiar green glow. A voice comes out of it saying, you know, she's not Batgirl. She stole it from me, or I will reclaim my identity. And the last page is a shot of Oracle, aka Barbara Gordon, on the screen. So who knows what's going on with that, but definitely interesting and completely out of left field. I don't.
A lot of completely out of left field things going on with Jimmy and Superman and new powers developing.
Yeah,
DC's.
Which is kind of cool because kind of anything can happen at this point, and amazingly enough, these are not being spoiled in advance.
No, not so far.
The downside is, you know, if anybody was interested in this, we didn't order any more copies than we normally order of Batgirl. But some of you may want to pick this up, and you may not be able to find it at your local comic shop because the retailers were not given a heads up. Hey, you might want to stock up a little bit on this issue. So who knows? But it makes things interesting, and it's injecting some much needed, enthusiasm and excitement into the DC universe. Yeah,
I mean, presumably at some point around Action Comics 1 or Detective 39, 38, 39, 27. The year was 38, 39 was 20. Anyway, presumably when comics started, there was no guarantee that stuff was going to go on, that the characters were going to continue, and that's when we got some of our best stories. I mean, if you think about some of the iconic Fantastic Four stuff, you know, Skrulls are in issue 3. You've got Inhumans in issue 16. You know, this stuff just happens. You know, Spider-Man, some of the classic Spider-Man stories are in the first 20, 30 issues because they left it all on the field. You know, Firefly was a great TV show because it was always going to be canceled tomorrow. Every episode was their last episode. And the way these people are writing the DC books going into Convergence is awesome. I love the possibility that anything could happen when I pick up a book.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what the DC Universe looks like post-Convergence and to get into Convergence, plus the 2-issue miniseries that are coming out in April and May. So that's it for this week. Lots of cool stuff. We saw several suggestions on last week's video about us coming up with our list of Marvel's greatest graphic novels of all time. So we are working on that. It's not something we could just throw together extremely quickly. And if we just spitballed it here, we'd be for 3 hours talking about the books, how my list is different than his, and what qualifies and what doesn't qualify. So we're refining that a little bit, but look to an episode sometime in the near future where we talk about Marvel's greatest graphic novels. And thank you for those of you that made a suggestion like that. And I'm done talking. We'll see you next time.